ಎಂತ ಒಂಚೂರ ಹಾಂ ಇವರು ಮಾಡಿ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ मला असायचं ना क्लास
Hello guys, good afternoon. So in the previous class, we have discussed about the final keyword usage. Any doubts in that? Have you practiced final keyword usage? Any doubts? Next topic is wrapper classes. Wrapper classes. Wrapper classes. I cannot say that Java is a 100% object-oriented programming language. Why? Because we are using the primitives. Why? Because we are using the primitives. In case of Python, I can say that it is the 100% object-oriented programming language. But in case of Java, I cannot say that it is 100% object-oriented. Why? Because the usage of primitives. So that is why what we are doing. To represent the primitives in the form of objects. To represent the primitives in the form of objects, we are using the wrapper classes. To represent the primitives in the form of objects, we are using the wrapper classes. Totally, we have 8 primitive data types. Totally, we have 8 primitive data types. What are those? Byte, short, int, long, float, double, char, boolean. For all these primitive data types, we have the corresponding wrapper classes. For all these 8 primitive data types, we have the corresponding wrapper classes. For the byte primitive, we have the byte wrapper class. For the short primitive, we have the short wrapper class. For int, we have the integer wrapper class. For the long, we have long wrapper class. For the float, we have float wrapper class. For the double, we have the double wrapper class. For the char primitive, we have the character wrapper class. For the boolean primitive, we have the boolean wrapper class. Now, all these wrapper classes are available in java.lang package. Java.lang package. All these 8 wrapper classes are available in java.lang package. All the wrapper classes are final class. All the wrapper classes are final class. You cannot able to extend those classes. In every wrapper class, toString method of object class got overridden. In every wrapper class, toString method of object class got overridden to print the content instead of memory location. Usage of toString, you'll come to know in object class. ToString method of object class got overridden in all the 8 primitive, sorry, in all the wrapper classes, in all the wrapper classes, in all the 8 wrapper classes. How it got overridden? To print the content of that object instead of the memory location. And also hash code and equal, hash code and equals method got overridden. Those two methods are also from the object class. What is the usage of this hash code and equals methods? We can able to identify the duplicates. We can able to identify the duplicate objects. We'll come to know in object class. Now, this is very important. Except in character wrapper class, in all the other remaining wrapper classes, there are two constructors are available. Except in character wrapper class, except in character wrapper class, except in character wrapper class, in all other wrapper classes, there are two constructors are available. One constructor is taking corresponding primitive as the argument. One constructor is taking corresponding primitive as the argument. Another constructor is taking string as the argument. One constructor is taking corresponding primitive as the argument. Another constructor is taking string as the argument. we are using the wrapper classes for wrapping primitive constants into objects. We are using the wrapper classes for wrapping primitive constants into object. Now, first program. Integer is the one of the wrapper class. Integer is one of the wrapper class. Now, while creating the object to integer class, I'm passing one value int value 0. Which constructor it is going to invoke? The constructor which is taking corresponding primitive as the argument. I'll show you the integer class. What are all the methods? What are all the constructors are available? Two constructors are available in the integer class. One is taking corresponding int as the value. Another one is taking string as the argument. Right? Now, all these wrapper classes are available from JDK 1.0 itself. Now, what I'm trying to do here, 0 is the primitive value. 0 is the primitive value. Now, what happens when you are calling this constructor by passing this primitive value? The value 0 is boxing inside the integer object. The value 0 is boxing inside the integer object. The object is referred by obj. The value 0 is boxing inside this integer and making it as integer object. Inside this integer object, we have the value 0. The object is referred by obj. The object is referred by obj. Understood? This is what we are calling boxing process. Boxing. This is manual boxing. Okay? Manual. Tools are only doing it. That means what? Here, I'm supplying the I value. I is what? Primitive or not? Int I, 0. That is 0 is boxing inside the integer object. Then that object is referred by obj. Inside this integer object, we have the primitive value 0. We are representing the primitive in the form of objects or not? Through boxing. Now obj is pointing to one object of the integer class. That the object internally contains the value 0. So this process we are calling it as boxing. Boxing. What is unboxing? Upon obj, I'm calling the int value method. Upon obj, I'm calling int value method. Obj is pointing to one integer object. Inside that object, we have the value 0. I'm calling int value method on obj. What it does? Observe method. There is a method called int value. Return type is what? Int. Returns the value of the integer object as the int. Returns the value of this integer as an int. That means whatever the value is there within that integer, that value it is going to return. Whatever the value is there within this integer object, that value we are retrieving, extracting. We are retrieving, we are extracting that value. Obj is pointing to an object, integer object. Inside that object, we have the value 0. But in this int value method, we are extracting, we are getting that value from that object. Then that value we are storing back to primitive k, primitive integer. If you try to print the k, you will get the 0. 0 and done. Here, which constructor I'm using inside the double class? Which is taking corresponding primitive, double primitive as the argument. In double class also, two constructors are available. One is taking what? Corresponding primitive as the argument. Another constructor is taking string as the argument. Now, which one we are using? Which is taking primitive as the argument. Directly I'm sending. Directly I'm sending. Otherwise, you can store it in a primitive double and you can send that variable. That is also possible. But here directly I'm sending the value 10.09. This 10.09 is boxing inside the double object. Then that double object is pointed by D1. This process we are calling it as boxing. Like in integer class, in the double class also, we have the double value method. It is going to return the double value that is inside this D1 object. 10.09 will be returned by this double value. Then that value we are storing inside the double primitive D2. Of course, the return value is what? Double. If you take float, what happens? What happens? Type mismatch. Cannot convert from double to float. If you want the typecasting, you can do it. No issues at all. Here, we know how to typecast. Right or D1 and D2 value will be what? Observe carefully here. D1 is what? Reference type. D1, directly printing. If you directly try to print the D1, if you directly try to call the D1, Internally, is going to call that toString method of this double class. Inside the double class, toString method got overridden to return the object content instead of the memory location. So that is why we'll be getting the 10.09. Now D2, of course, we'll be getting the 10.09 only. Why? Because it is primitive, no? No issues at all. For example, here, I'll show you one small example. As A1 is equal to U A. Here, directly, between the A1. Save it. Compile. We are getting the memory address. Why? Because toString method of object class not overridden explicitly in the A class to return the object content. Now, public string toString. I'm not trying to print what? A1 dot I. Simply I'm trying to print what? Reference. So something like this in all the upper classes, toString method of object class got overridden to return what? Content instead of the memory location. If I don't have this now, I'll be getting what? Memory address. That is the usage of toString. Character upper class. Character upper class. We are calling the constructor which is taking corresponding char as the value, making it as the character object. Inside that character object, we have the primitive character value A. That is referred by C2. That is referred by C2. That the process we are calling it as boxing. Now, whatever the value that is there inside this character object, we are retrieving through char value method of the character class. I'm calling char value on C2 object. It's going to retrieve, extract the value that is inside the character object. That is what A. Storing inside is C3. That is the primitive. We can print also. Now this process we are calling it as unboxing. Unboxing. Compilation success. We get that done as the P1 is equal to false. It is the primitive type. Now P1 is boxing inside the Boolean object. That Boolean object is referred by P2. Now directly I am sending the primitive value Boolean true. It is also boxing inside the Boolean object referred by P2. Both we are extracting extracting by using the Boolean value method of the Boolean class. Then storing inside the B4 and B5. If you try to print the B4 and B5, you get the false and true. We are making use of the second constructor, which is taking string as the argument. What we are doing? We are calling the second constructor, which is taking string as the argument in all the wrapper classes, except in character wrapper class. Except in character wrapper class. Constructs a newly allocated integer object that represents the int value indicated by the string parameter. What it does? It is going to create one integer object, one integer object. Internally, we have the int value that is accepted in the form of string. That is accepted in the form of string. See here, S1 is also one string object. We are extracting the content of the string object. Then what we are doing? Then we are boxing that int value inside the integer object. Then that is referred by obj. Now, while you are supplying the value in the form of a string, that should be only numbers. In case of integer, that should be compulsory numbers, whole numbers. Should not contain any decimal points or special characters or alphabets. Purely numbers. Otherwise, you'll get a number format exception. Ten is boxing inside the integer object. 200 is boxing inside the integer object. We are extracting the obj object using int value, storing inside primitive int type. Printing obj and obj2. You will be getting 10 and 200. Then obj2 that int value. We are extracting the content of the obj2. What do we have in obj2? 200. That is going to store with the primitive int j. Now what is I? What is j? I is 10, j is 200. In case of double, if we are using the second constructor which is taking string as the argument, the special character dot is allowed. Why? Because we are accepting the double value, no. That is why only one special character, what is that? Dot is allowed. We are making the boxing from the content of the string object, making it a double object. That is referred by D1. Same we are extracting, storing into primitive double D2. This is boxing, this is unboxing. Then printing both. Both you will get 9.989. In this case, we are using the second constructor which is taking the string as the argument inside the byte wrapper class. But here I'm sending alphabet along with the number. In this case, we don't get any compilation error, but at the runtime, you'll get the number format exception. Compiler doesn't bother about the content of the S1. Compilation success, but at runtime. Number format exception. S1, 2. S2, S3, 10. S4, S5. Observe the different cases here. All we are boxing, right or wrong? Then all we are unboxing. Then printing the same. All are boxing. All are unboxing. Then printing. In case of Boolean, if you are supplying in the form of string, uppercase or lowercase true is considered as what? True. Uppercase or lowercase. Case will be ignored in case of true. Uppercase or lowercase. Uppercase or lowercase. It is true. In all other cases, it is false. We don't get number format exception. In all other cases, it is false. Only uppercase true, lowercase true. Or because it is ignoring the case. We'll get that. In all other cases, we'll get the false. Whatever you supply, we don't get any exception. So, even then, yes, 4. B4. Only two true are getting right or wrong. Whichever it is in the lower case, whichever it is in the upper case. In all other cases, we'll get the false. We don't get any exception. Okay. Yes. This is very important. Except in character wrapper class, in all the other wrapper classes, we have two constructors. One is taking corresponding primitive as the value, another is taking string as the value. But in the character wrapper class, you don't have the constructor which is taking string as the argument. Why? Why? Because there is no way of converting from string to char. We cannot able to convert from string to char, but char to string is possible. There is no way of converting from string to char. Why? Because string might be containing multiple characters, right? Or we cannot able to convert from string to char. But even though, observe carefully, even though if it is containing a single character also, we cannot able to convert from string to char. But char to string is possible. Char to string is possible. So that is why you get the compilation error itself. Number 6. Incompatible types, string cannot be converted to char. Now we are using the both. One is taking primitive, another is taking string. Both the constructor we are using, one is taking the corresponding primitive as the value, another one is taking string as the value. Then we are unboxing both. Unboxing. This is the boxing and this is the unboxing. Yep. Both we are using, both the constructors. We have seen this already. If anything other than true in the uppercase or lowercase, that will be what? False. False. That's it. But here it remains what it remains. It is the primitive only. It is not the string. Primitive is not changing. Int, int number, int number, data type. What is the use if you type the data type? Then what happens? You are sending what? What you are sending? What you are sending? Int type. Int cannot be converted to boolean. Int cannot be converted to boolean. Now observe. In the double class, we have two value of overloaded methods. Overloaded methods. Two value of overloaded methods. One is taking what? Primitive, corresponding primitive as the argument. Another one is taking what? String as the argument. In fact, in the integer class as well. Two value of methods we have in the integer class. One is taking what? Primitive. Another one is taking what? String. Both are returning the integer object return type. Both are returning the integer object. Object. Integer means object. Integer object. In the double class also. What about in the character? We have one value of method we have that is taking corresponding character as the primitive, but we don't have the string. We don't have the value of method that is taking string. Why? Because there is no way of converting from string to character. So what about in Boolean class? Two methods. One is taking corresponding primitive, another one is taking string. So except in the character wrapper class, in all the wrapper classes, there are two value of overloaded methods. One is taking corresponding primitive as the value, another one is taking what? String as the value. Both will be returning the corresponding objects. Both methods will be returning the corresponding objects. Now in this case, what happens? Taking the S1 content 90.9, making the double object, return the value will be what? Double object. That object is referred by D1. Now we are retrieving the value, extracting the value, whatever it is inside the D1, double value, storing inside the D2. Now D1 90.9, D2 also 90.9. Compilation error. Compilation error at line number 12. String cannot be converted to char. There is no way of converting from string to char. Now, in all the wrapper classes, we have the toString method. In all the wrapper classes, we have toString method. Observe carefully. Two overloaded toString method we have. One is from the object class, one is within that class only. Static. Static string. One is from the object class. Another toString method, its own class method. Now, what is the usage of this? It is taking primitive as the argument, corresponding primitive. In case of integer class, it is going to take the int as the value, toString method. That is converting into string object. See here, returns a string object representing the specified integer. Returns a string object representing the specified integer. It is going to return, this toString method is going to return the string object that is representing the specified integer. Now S1 will contain this 10 in the form of string, integer to string, double to string, boolean to string, character to string. We are converting from the corresponding primitive to what? String. In all the wrapper classes, this toString will be available. Two toString methods will be available. One is from what? Objective class. Another one is its own, which is taking corresponding primitive as the argument. Then it is going to return the string object representing the corresponding value. Simply, we are going to convert from wrapper class type to string type. See why I'm using this, because in the integer class only I have this two string. That is why first I'm calling the two string method on integer class. Inside the integer class only we have two string. Then I'm supplying one primitive value that will be converted to the string object. Then that object is stored inside S1. That object will be pointed by S1. Likewise, in all the wrapper classes, except in character wrapper class, we have the parse method, which is going to take the string as the argument, and it is going to return the primitive value, corresponding primitive value. In all the wrapper classes, except in character wrapper class. In all the wrapper classes, except in character wrapper class, we have the parse method, which is taking string as the argument. What it does, it is going to take the string as the argument, then it is going to convert the content of that string to the corresponding primitive values. Primitive values. 45 converted to the primitive byte. 45 will be converted to the primitive byte, then that is stored inside the byte. Parse int. It is going to convert the value 45 to the int, primitive int, then that is going to store inside the I. Parse double also, parse long also. In case of parse boolean, if anything other than true, it is what? False. You don't get any number format exception. Simply will get false. If you try to print the B2 last, will get false. See here, 9.8. You can convert it to float or double, no issues at all. But in 9.8 cannot able to convert as the int, byte, short or long. Why? Because of the special character. Otherwise, you'll get number format, etc. this already?
False. False to true.
B1 will be false. B2 and B3 will be
True.
ignoring the case. In case of Boolean, either in the lower case or upper case, both will be considered as true. If anything other than this, false. In the character class, there is no such method called parse character which is taking string as the argument. What will get? Compatible. No such method. M19. You know this already. What is output?
10.
10. That's it. Yesterday only I have done now. Day before yesterday. What is output?
10.0.
What? What is J value? Huh? What is J value? What happened? Day before yesterday we have int is upcasting to double. Int is upcasting to double. Auto upcasting becoming 10.0.
10.0.
What happens? Auto upcasting. D extends A. B is the sub. A is the super. Subclass upcasted to A type. Superclass can hold the subclass object. Now here also upcasting is happening. A upcasted to object type. B upcasted to object type. Observe carefully. In JDK 1.5, they have introduced auto boxing and auto unboxing. JDK 1.5. JDK 1.5, they have introduced auto boxing and auto unboxing. Wherever required, compiler only doing the boxing. Wherever required, compiler only doing the unboxing. Auto boxing and auto unboxing. JDK 1.25. The value 10. 10 is the primitive. The value 10 is the primitive. That is boxing inside the integer object. Compiler only doing that. We are not doing it. Compiler only doing it. Compiler only doing it. See, in this case, it is manual. We are only, what we are doing? Boxing inside the integer object, then only we are sending. But here, directly you are sending the primitive to the reference. Directly you are sending primitive to the reference. In JDK 1.4, it is not possible. In JDK 1.4, it is not possible. You get a compile time error. Why? Because primitive cannot be converted to object like primitive cannot be assigned to reference. That means here 10 is the int primitive, then this is the object, integer is the object. Not possible. But because of auto boxing and auto unboxing from JDK 1. Compiler only doing the boxing, 10 is boxed inside the integer object, then that is pointed by object. Now here, this is the object, this is the primitive, right? Or in JDK 1.4, this is not possible. In JDK 1.4, this is not possible. Why? Because it is object, it is primitive, incompatible. But JDK 1.5, auto unboxing. Compiler only doing the unboxing. Compiler only extracting the value 10. Then that is stored inside the M22. Now, how to compile with the different version of Java? Java C, Python, 1.4. Compiling with the different version. Okay. What I'll get? Compilation error. Two compilation error. Line number 12. At line number 14. Right or wrong? 12 and 14. It's 22. Two errors. Line number 12 and line number 14. You can ignore the warnings. Okay? Ignore the warnings. Two errors we are getting. The same program. We're trying to compile in 1.5. No issues at all. Simply I'll get a warning. That's it. Compilation success. Why? Because of the auto boxing and auto unboxing concept. Where is boxing is happening or where is unboxing is happening? What is happening in this program?
There is a written box.
Boxing up.
Unbox. Box.
Boxing or unboxing? Huh? Boxing or unboxing? Unboxing. Unboxing. Here, there is no conversion is required. There is no boxing or unboxing is required. Primitive 10. 10 only I am storing in. So, I. But here, this is object. This is primitive. It is not possible in case of 1.4. From 1.5 onwards, because of the auto unboxing concept, compiler only doing the unboxing, extracting the value 10, that is going to store within the J. 23. Point 4 compilation error, 1 compilation error. 1.5 success. Now, char C1 is what? Primitive. Char C1 is what? Primitive. New character of yes, it is object. It is going to unboxing. Possible from 1.5 onwards. Now this statement is valid in all the versions. Why? Because user only doing the unboxing here. This syntax is valid in all the versions. No issues at all. Here automatically this 20 it is boxed inside the double object, then that is recorded by D1. Here we are only doing the unboxing. We are calling the double value method on D1 that is going to extract the value 20 that is inside the D1 object, then storing inside the D2. In all the versions, this syntax is possible. 25. And 4 also. And 3 also. Or 1.8 also. Okay. Error. J is what type? Huh? Reference type. Reference type. Now, wherever J is pointing, for the same, M also should point. That is what I'm saying. Wherever J is pointing, for the same, M also should point. Now, this object got the two references, J and M. Now, J and M, comparing what? References we are comparing. References. Whether two objects are pointing to the same object or not. I'll get true. wherever boxing is required.
Online? Online they connected or not? Still they connecting? Okay. Hi, how are you people?
Yeah, good
Everybody
sir.
responding? Okay. I had shared a link for you people to update your data on the placement bank. In the group I had shared in the beginning. Had everyone done that?
Yes, sir.
I've shared. Online, guys who connected online, can you people hear me?
Yes,
I
sir.
just let you
Yes,
after
sir.
Yes, sir, we did.
have people updated? I see very less records from Dayanand Sagar College, hardly 10, 12 records I see. But in the class I see 40 people. Huh? Not interested in placements, sir.
We are interested, sir.
So have you updated?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we did.
Please cross check once again. I will share the link right now. Okay, in the group. Please cross check. If you're not updated, please update. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Some information is asked over there. Every information should be filled. I shared the link once again in the WhatsApp group. Okay, please cross check and fill the details. Okay. Fine. I have one more proposal for you people. There is a company called Kenzio Digital. They want people who know HTML and CSS, at least to the basic level. Okay. And this is not like a development job where you will be developing softwares or websites and all. This is not development job. Okay. But there is no any criteria on this, like what the percentages, all these things. Right. So if anybody are interested in this proposal, you can ping me separately with your resume. Yeah, that is the company name is Kenzio Digital, which is into digital marketing and email marketing. For this digital marketing side, you have to do technical things, right? Like creating the web pages, right? Email, HTML emails, this kind of things. They said around 15,000 to 18,000 per month is what they have told. Okay. And interesting thing is there will be 2 years of agreement. It's not a bond. They won't take your documents and all. It's an agreement, general agreement. Okay. So first 4 to 5 months, 6 months, there will be training for you with the same salary. Okay. So if you take training for 7, 8 months, then if you leave the company for 1 year, why company should hire this in this case, right? So they expect this kind of agreement. So people who are ready for this agreement and people who or don't want to get into pure technical, but they are okay with this kind of jobs, they can talk to me separately. Okay? No, you should have. Otherwise, they won't hire. There will be a written test or online test they do. Online guys, any doubts from online guys?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so clear whatever I said.
I have a doubt, sir.
Tell me, man. Vinay, right?
Sir. Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Tell me, Vinay.
Sir, I have 59.36 percentage in my 10th, sir. Is
That's
it
fine.
possible to?
That's fine. That's
Sir?
fine. I said. That's fine. I said no restrictions on the percentages and all.
No, sir. For the Cap Gemini, is it possible to attend, sir? With
Cape Gemini,
59.36?
even if you have 59.999, also they won't take.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So you should have studied well in 10th. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay, no issues. Fine. So you start like don't like if you expect your first job should be in MNCs only, then your knowledge will not grow because MNCs will set a process to such a minute level where they teach only certain things and the entire life will be doing that thing only. You will not you will not go you will not learn many things, right? And if you go to some other company and you have to stick to the same process, and if that process is not available in other companies, you will not get a job anywhere. So better to start your career with medium companies or small scale companies where you go, you learn good knowledge, you acquire good knowledge. This is my
Yes,
personal
sir.
suggestion. Don't always dream about Capgemini, IBM, Accenture, and all.
Yes, sir.
Right? If you get, it's well and good. But if you don't get, don't lose other company opportunities. Okay. So think
Yes,
about
sir.
this NGO digital opportunity and let me know, guys. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And please don't forget to update the sheet if you are not updated, because that's a placement bank. And if your data is not there in that bank, then you will not get a placement opportunity.
Sir,
So
what about 2021 passed out, sir?
they also can apply. But any companies who are asking specifically 2021, we will push. Okay, it's like opportunities are mainly depends upon the company's JDs what we get. Many companies are asking 2021 also, right? So we'll push for those kind of companies. Okay. So 18 are connected online and 7 are here. Okay. Fine, guys. I think I see around 40 people in the tracker. How come only 26 students? Fine, no worries. Okay, thank you, guys. Carry on. I will talk. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Okay. Guys, can you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So here, test of 10. What is happening here? Primitive value I'm sending. Primitive value I'm sending. Now what happens? It is boxing inside the integer object, making integer object. Then that is only I'm sending to test method argument. Obj will be pointing to that object. Here I'm only doing the what I'm doing. Not boxing. Here what? I am only creating the integer object. I am only creating the integer object. Okay. I am only creating the integer object. Here. Already compiler only doing the boxing here. Okay. Then what we are doing? We are sending the object. Now this obj will be pointing to that object. Right or not? Now this obj will be pointing to two objects. Two objects. See, observe. Otherwise, we don't. Each time I'm going to print out, I should get different memory address. M27. Here, I am not getting the memory address because two string method of the object class got overridden in the integer class to return the content. Now I'll change the content here. First time 20. Second time 10. Okay. Here. We are sending reference, but accepting is what? Primitive. Sending reference, accepting is what? Primitive. Now it is going to extract the content, primitive value 10, that is going to store with the I. That is what we are supplying to I. If you want to do it manually, this is the syntax. User wise. User wise. Here. First primitive I'm sending D2. It's okay. While calling the test, I'm supplying D1. D1 is what? D1 is what type? Reference type. Now reference type and also accepting is what? Reference type. Compatible. Now here D2. D2 is what? Primitive. Now this one will be boxed inside the double object. Then we are sending the object. Object itself. Now what happens? Now what happens? This object will be referred by this obj. Now here what is happening? What is happening here? D1 is what type? Reference type. Now simply I am saying that wherever D1 is pointing, for the same obj also should point. Understood? Understood or not? Here what I'm setting? Reference. Wherever D1 is pointing for the same object, obj also point. Now here I'm creating the new object itself, double object. Then for this object, obj will be pointing. Now if you print obj, what is the value? Sir, carefully commenting this. Okay. M30. $20.0 we are getting. Comment this. 40.0 will get. See, don't here. What is happening here? Whatever we are supplying, it is upcasting from into 2 double type. Here also into 2 double type. To avoid the confusion, make it as 20.0, 40.0. Then I'll get 40.0 here. Both I'm calling. First time I'll get what? 20.0 done. Second time I'll get 40.0 done. Here. Test method accepting is what? Reference type. But sending is what? Primitive type. Not possible in case of 1.4. But 1.5, it is only making what? Character object. Then only it is sending. Now here, this one is compatible. Primitive only I'm sending. C1 accepting also primitive compatible. Here, sending is what? Primitive. Accepting is what? Reference. Now what? It is boxing inside the character object. Then only sending. Now here, this is the character primitive type. But accepting is what? Object type, reference type. It is only in case of 1.5, it is only boxing inside the character object, then only sending. Now C2. What happens? What happens? No issues, right? C2 is reference type or not? Yes, of course. Wherever this C2 is pointing, for the same this OBJ also should point. Here in the if block, we know that if block requires one Boolean expression, Boolean value. Either it can be true or false. Either it can be true or false. Now, in case of 1.4, if I supply a reference here, compilation error. But in case of 1.25, if you supply a reference here, what happens? Unboxing will happen. Unboxing. Unboxing, and it is going to supply the value true. But if you want to do it manually, in 1.4 or before, you can go for this syntax. User only doing the unboxing. Here, while returning, observe carefully. We are returning primitive, but accepting is what? Object return. That is fine. What happens? What happens? It is going to box inside the integer object, then only it is. That object is referred by this OBJ. Understood? Return value we are sending to the OBJ. Now return value will be one object of type integer that is only referred by this OBJ. Test method return type is what? Int, but sending is what? Reference. 1.4 error. 1.5 what happens? It is going to unbox, then only it is sending the value 20. That value 20 is in the form of what? Int. Int. That is once again boxing inside the integer object, then that is referred by O1. Now this syntax will work fine for any of the version. Now this syntax actually it is not that. If I have like here I'm calling test method. Return the value of test method we are supplying as the argument to the integer class constructor. Now while returning it is going to unbox and return the value, int value, primitive value that only we are sending 20. Then that is boxed inside the integer object that is referred by O. Here one is taking primitive, another one is taking reference. These two methods are overloaded methods. Overloaded methods. You will get int and integer. Two times I'm calling the test method, but only one test method is there. That is accepting reference. But while sending, I'm sending primitive also, I'm sending reference also. In case of 1.4 error, but in case of 1.5, compiler only doing the boxing. Two times you'll get integer. Two times you'll get integer. And that's it. Here, accepting is what? primitive. But here, reference I'm setting and also primitive also. But 1.4 error, 1.5 possible. It is only extracting the value 20, then it is sending. Carefully observe. In this case, write it down, everybody. Here, two overloaded methods we have. Test method. One is taking primitive, another one is taking what? Reference. Now, here, in the main method, I is equal to 20. I is what type? Integer type. I'm sending I, calling the test method. Which method will be executed? Here, two possibilities are there. One is widening from int to double widening. This whatever the value I'm sending I, that is the int. Then that can be upcasted to what? Double type widening. Another chance is there. What is that option? Another option is boxing. Another option is boxing. Another option is boxing. Now, which one will get? Okay. M38. There is a corresponding wrapper. There is a corresponding boxing. There is an option for boxing. There is an option for boxing, and if there is an option for widening, there is an option for boxing, and if there is an option for widening will be given the preference first. That is first case. There is a possibility of boxing and there is a possibility of widening. What will be the output? Widening will be given the first preference. Now observe. Sending is what? Long. Now here two methods we have. Two methods we have. One is taking what? Load. There is a chance of upcasting. Here also there is a chance of upcasting. Whichever is immediate, whichever it is immediate upcasting, we get the immediate upcasting. That one will be considered. float. Assume I have like this. Here, what is there? It can be boxed inside the float. But what is this? Wrapper class. It is not the same type of long. It is a float type. It is sending is what? Non-type. But here there is a chance for boxing inside float. Now what will be the assume here okay. Widening will be given the preference over boxing. Widening will be given the preference over boxing. So this much is enough for today. Quickly, I'll take the attendance now. Did I MS?
Present, sir.
Arshita? Chaitra? Basaraj? Adesha?
Present, sir.
Kiran? Syed Afsar? Syed Afsar Pasha?
Present, sir.
Spurti? Spurti? Kirtana? Rishita Prakash? Mohammed Sufyan? Mohammed Sufyan? Chandan K?
Present, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Nandish?
Present, sir.
Present, sir.
Rakshit?
Sir, Mohammed Sufyan, present, sir.
Okay. Rakshit Kumar? Anil Kumar?
Present, sir.
Archit Kar? Vaishnavi Hegde? Vaishnavi Hegde? Pritam Biyar?
Present, sir.
Gagandeep?
Yes, sir.
Salma Taj? Tarun Singh? Abhishek Singh?
Yes, sir.
Gagan Gosavi?
Yes, sir.
Mohammad Omar Qasim? is present? Salma Taj,
Yes, sir.
Amar Omar, Ahmad
Pres-
Omar Kasim.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Deepti SH, Deepti. Shruti R, Chandanayam, Yamunayam, Harish D, Chaitanyam, Shalini, Kamala,
Present, sir.
Yashaswini NR,
Present, sir.
Samay Zuma, Basuraj P. Already ಆಗಿತ್ತಲ್ಲ. Shreya S. Shreya. Darshan S. Darshan S. Okay, thank you so much, guys. We'll continue in the next class. Have a good day.